At the end of this tutorial, this is what you would have created: a fun, plane dodging game. Enjoy the tutorial. Let's get right into the tutorial. So the first thing you guys will want to do is get your sprites. So I have an enemy plane sprite, and I have the player's plane sprite. So once you have both of your sprites, you're going to drag your player sprite into the scene view, and we're going to need to do a few things. So if it's facing left, like mine is, then if you're selected on the plane, if you go to its sprite renderer component and click flip on the X check, then it will be facing right, and that's what we want. We want a plane that faces right. So once we have that, we need to scale it down. So we could go to the X and make this 1.3, and go to the Y and make it 1.3. And now we have a decent sized plane, but I am going to make mine a little bit bigger. You can make yours however you want. And so now we have a pretty good looking plane model. So the next thing we want to do is click on our main camera, and I'm going to quickly change my background color. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I think we should. It makes the overall game look much better, because that dark Unity default color, I don't like it. Okay, so once we have our player sprite in, we need to add our enemy sprite in. So just drag out your enemy plane. Mine is already facing left. If yours isn't, then you could do the flip trick that I showed you guys, not the Y, but the X. And then you could resize that one as well. So I think this is a pretty good size for it. So now with both of my planes, we are going to start making a script. So let's call this script, let's make a new script, and let's call it move left script. This is going to be the script that controls all of the objects that move from the right side of the screen to the left. So the enemy planes, the coins, everything. So once you made that script, you can open it up. And we are going to need to make a few variables. So the first variable we are going to make is public float speed. So we will be able to control the speed. We are also going to need a private rigid body 2D RB. And in the start function, we could assign the rigid body to the characters or the object the script is on's rigid body. So we simply do it by getting the component of the rigid body 2D. And then in the update, all we need to do is rb.velocity equals vector2.left times speed times time.delta time. So this should make all the objects that we put the script on just simply move to the left. So then we go on the enemy plane. If we give it the script, if you give it speed, let's say 900, if we try to run it, you'll notice it doesn't move and we get an error. This is because we didn't attach a rigid body 2D to it, and as you can clearly see here, we need to get the component of a rigid body. So right when we add on the rigid body, we need to set the gravity scale to 0 because we don't want it falling down. And then when we run it, we don't get an error, and it successfully moves to the left side of the screen, which is exactly what we want. So that is good. Since we finished this script, let's start working on the Playercontroller Script. So just make a script, name it Playercontroller. Names don't really matter, so you could really make the names whatever you want. So we are going to need a few variables here too. So the first one being public float speed as well, because we need the speed, and we need private rigid body. Sorry, I just need to reset my script. Sometimes it glitches and it won't autofill. So we need the rigid body 2D RB. And in the start, we could assign it just like the other one we did in the move left script. And so now since we assigned the rigid body, we can make it so in the update function, we will have a float y equals input dot get axis vertical. So we will be using the Unity input system. And then we could simply do rb.velocity equals new vector 2, since we're in 2D, rb.velocity.x, and then y, which is our variable here. So now we will be able to move the player up and down after we give it a rigid body. So if we click on our player, we need to give it a rigid body 2D, and don't forget to set the gravity scale to 0, just like with the enemy. And we also need to remember to put the script on it. Okay, so once it's on, we could give it whatever speed we want. I'm going to try 500. It's a little bit slow, so I'll rise the speed. But as you can see, it is working. Now you can move the player up and down. So let's see. Sorry, we forgot one thing, guys. So we made it so it will move based on the Y position, but we need to do Y times speed times time dot delta time. So this will make it so that now it also will be multiplied by the speed, which will make it go much faster and to what we set it to. So let's make it a little bit more. I'm going to make it 1000, and that should do it. Yep, perfect. Now we can control our plane going up and down with either the up and down arrow keys or W and S. That is Unity's built-in input system. So we don't want the player going too high up because right now he could go out of the scene view. So we need to click on our main camera and add a box collider 2D to it. We are going to end up needing 2, but we will add this one first. So just drag it as I am showing. Don't make it a trigger because we want the player to be able to collide. And then once you made one that just blocks the player from going up, you can copy the component. Let's make it a little bit longer. Then you can copy the component, insert a new box collider, paste the component values, and then set its Y offset to the negative version of what it is to make it on the bottom instead of the top. We also need to give the player a box collider because currently it can go through the top, but now it can't because it has a box collider. Perfect. So the next thing we are going to add is a spawner system. We need to be able to spawn things from the side. This spawner system, the script is going to be used for the enemy planes and coins. So for the spawner, we are going to need a public game object spawn prefab. Let's just quickly restart my script, sorry. So a public game object spawn prefab and public float min time and max time. So this will be the minimum time between each spawn and max time. It's going to be random. We also need a private float for the time. We will set the time equal to random.range, min time, and max time. So this will select a random number between the minimum time we insert and the maximum time. So in the update, we could just do time minus equals time dot delta time. And every second, this will subtract 1 from time. So it will go down by the second, like a timer, which is what we are making. So now we just need to check if time is less than or equal to 0. Then we will perform a spawn function, which we are about to make. We will also set time back to random.range of min time and max time, because we need to set it to a random number after it goes to 0. So first spawn, we get an error. That's because we need to make a function, so we will do void spawn. This is making the function, and in the spawn function, we need to make a game object, obj equals instantiate spawn prefab as game object. So this will instantiate, which means like clone, add to the scene, duplicate. It will spawn the prefab, and then we will set it to be the object. So then we could do object.transform.position equals new vector 2, and we need to make it the x position of the max x position for Unity, which is about over here. We would need to spawn it. So we'll do 12.45 for the x, 12.45f for float, and then we will do a random number between negative 4.15. Well, we need to do a random number, so random.range. And then negative 4.15 to 4.15. This should make it so this will make it choose a number from the top of the screen to the bottom. That's what these numbers represent, the bottom and the top. So then, once we are done with this, we can do an if statement of if object.gameObject.compareTag is enemy. So if it's not the coin, but it's the enemy, then we will give it a random speed. So object.gameObject.getComponent move left script dot speed equals random.range. And right now it's 900, so we'll make it 900, but instead of doing 900, we'll do move left. No, let's just do 900. And it will be randomly selected from, let's do 700, a little bit less. From 700, which will be really slow, to 1500, which will be pretty fast. So it will be a random speed to make it look more realistic. Because if every plane's going at the same speed, that will look kind of weird and boring. So now that we have our Sponder script, if we go back to Unity, we can give the camera the Sponder script, and then first of all, we need to make this plane the enemy plane a prefab. So first we need to go on the enemy plane, give it a box collider 2D, scale the box collider down to how you like it. A lot of times if you take images off the internet like I did, the box colliders won't be good, so you would need to scale them down. So once you have your prefab, you could delete the one in the scene. You could go back to your main camera with your Sponder script, and you could drag on enemy plane to that game object. So the minimum spawn time we'll put as 0.5 and the max time 2. So now, once we start the project, it will spawn in enemies. So we get this error, tag enemy is not defined. That is because we never made a tag called enemy. So if you didn't see what I did really quickly, you click on tags, and then you click add tag, and then you click the plus and you type the one you added. So I did enemy, and we put enemy exactly how we spelled it in the script on the enemy planes tag. So now they will be different speeds. Like this one is much faster than these, as you can see. This one is also much faster. Some are slower than others, and some are faster now. So now it is random. So right now, you can collide with the planes, but nothing happens. You're just going to get pushed. See? And we don't want you to get pushed, one. So if we go to our rigid body, we could go to our constraints and we could freeze the position here. And so that will make it so that we can't get pushed. Even though it's a single live game, we don't really want to make it look like you get pushed before you lose. We will also freeze the Y position. Actually, no, don't freeze the Y position. Do not. It will stop you from going up and down. freeze the Z rotation is what you should actually be doing. That will stop us from rotating. So if we collide, we should just stand still in place. Exactly how we do. So that is perfect. All we do is go up and down a little bit, but that doesn't matter. So now let's add in some, for the next step, I guess we could start adding in the score. So if you right click on your sample scene, you go to UI, text. Then if you double click on the text, you can see we have a new text element in our canvas. So let's make the text say 0. And let's make it, we don't need it bold, but let's make the horizontal overflow, and the vertical overflow. Make the color whatever you want. I will make mine white, and then I'm going to add the component outline, and this will give it a black outline. I will make my font size 60, 75, and then I will put, I am on the select tool, and I'm just dragging this so it's a little more center, so that when I click on my rect transform anchor, when I'm selected on the text, I click on this. If I hold down Alt for Windows, for Mac, I think it's Control, and then if you hold down Alt, you get all these new options. So I click the top left one because I want my text at the top left of the screen, and it does go there with the outline that we added. So now that we have our score displaying, we want to make it so that it will change based on the score. So if we go in our player controller again, we are going to now make the score script. So we are going to need to be using Unity Engine.UI. This will allow us to work with the UI elements in the canvas like the text that we just added. So now we could do public text score text. If we didn't have this using Unity Engine.UI, this text would give us an error. So we also need a public float score. So now we have the score and score text. So in start, we need to make score equals 0. And in update, we need to make it so that score plus equals time dot delta time. And this will make it so every second the score goes up by 1 point. We will make since this is a float, when we add 1, it will go 0.123. It will go in the decimals, and we don't want that. So we're going to make an integer called score int, and we are going to set it equal to int in parentheses, and then score. So this will make score into an integer instead of a float with all the decimal places. And then we could do score text dot text equals score int dot to string parentheses semicolon. This will set the text equal to the score int, which is equal to the score, without the decimal places. So this will basically just give us our score adding. So if we go back to our project, if we go on the player plane, we could give it the score text, and then as you can see, the score is going up every second, and we are gaining points. So that is what we like to see. It is working. So currently you cannot lose. So I think we should, so now let's make it so you can lose. You know, before we make it so you can lose, actually, sorry. Let's make it so you could get coins. So I have a coin sprite that I found on the internet. You could use whichever coin sprite you want. I'm going to use this one I found off the internet. And place it into your scene view and scale it down to a size you like. I think this size is pretty good. You know, I'm going to make it even smaller, so it's a little bit challenging to get it. You know what? Nah, I don't want it that challenging. It's a coin. It rewards you. So I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so once you're on the coin, you need to give it a circle collider 2D and make the radius whatever is best for the fit. So if your green circle is surrounding your coin perfectly, leave it. But if it's not, just mess around with the radius until you see that the green circle is around the coin well. And since ours is, we are going to leave it. It's perfect. But we need to give it a tag. So we're going to click add tag, hit the plus, and type coin. So we are going to tag it coin now. And we also need to give it move left script, which means that we need to give it a rigid body 2D, and we need to set the gravity scale to 0. Let's make its speed 900. So now if we go back to our player script, we need to check for some collisions. So when it collides with the coin, we need to add to the score, and when it collides with the enemy, we need to stop the game. So we need to check void on collision enter 2D if collision dot game object dot compare tag is enemy, then it will stop game. If collision dot game object dot compare tag is coin, then we want to make the score plus equals 10. We will add 10 points to your score, and then it will destroy the collision dot game object. Perfect. So now, if we go back in Unity, we need to use the Sponder Script to spawn in coins. So go on the camera. We have a Sponder Script, but we are going to add another one. And this time, it's going to be for the coin. So make the coin a prefab, just like we did with enemy by dragging it in, and then you can delete this one. Then if you go on the camera, you can drag coin into the spawn prefab. So the minimum time for coins will be 1 second, and the max time will be 4 seconds. So let's see how the coins spawn, if it's good. So here's a coin, and let's see if I can collide. I can, and it destroyed the coin. So as you can see, the enemy planes can collide with the coins, and it makes them spin around, and we don't want them to collide with each other. So instead of making them both triggers, because we already made them colliders, it would be much easier just to go to Edit, Project Settings, Physics 2D, and then we can uncheck layers that will collide with each other. So to do this, we will need to have layers. So let's make a layer, and let's call it coin. Let's make another layer, and let's call it enemy. So let's give the enemy layer, and the coin layer. Now if we go to Edit Project Settings, we can make it so coins can't collide with enemies, and enemies can't collide with enemies either, because both of those things we don't want. Same with coins colliding with coins. So we just uncheck where they meet. And now they won't be able to collide anymore, which is good. See how the planes are colliding, but they don't interact with each other. They just go straight through each other. You can touch the enemy planes and make them go flying. So because of this, we need to make a lose functionality. So let's make a new scene. Let's go to create scene, and this will be called menu, and we can name this scene sample scene game. So then let's go into the menu, let's go to file, build settings, and click add open scenes, and let's drag it up so that the menu is the 0, which is the first scene that will run when you start the game. So we have an empty scene here, and we need to make it like a menu. So let's do right click here, UI, text, and let's call it plain game. I'll make it bold. I will make it the text horizontal overflow, and the vertical overflow. And I will make it black colored. and we'll make the size 100. And if we double click on the text to go to it and use the select tool to go over it, we can center it by holding Alt or Control. Control on the Mac, not Windows. And then now if we go to the text, we can see it's at the top. We also want a button, so let's right click on the canvas, do UI button. And inside the button, if we open up the drop down arrow, we could change the text to say play. Let's make it darker text, overflow, 100. Let's make it bold and italic, because why not? 0.2, 0.2, and let's make the button a little bigger. So now we have a play button. Right now it does nothing, so let's make it so it does something. Let's create a new C# script called menu script, whatever you want to call it, and then let's open it up. Okay, so once it's opened, we are going to need to make a few variables, like all the scripts. So the first thing we want is a static private float score. So we are going to have something on the menu that will say previous score, and so we need a static float that will send the score data from the previous scene to this one. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but in this case, it's very easy. So let's do we also need a public game object, player. We also need a public text, but you see there's no text here. That's because we didn't do Unity engine.ui. So then public text, now the error is away, and we will make it previous score text. So in update, we need to check if, so in our if statement, we are going to check if the scene is the game scene, it will do something. Otherwise, if it's the menu scene, it will do something else. And to check what scene we're in, we need to do using Unity engine .scene management. So this will let us access these scenes. So if scene manager .get active scene .name equals game, which is what we named our game scene, then score will be equal to player .get component player movement controller or player controller .score. So now we got the score, changes its score variable to the player's score. And then we'll check else int score int equals int score. So we want to get the int of the score so we don't have the float. And then we will change the previous score text equal to previous score plus score int .toString. So this will make the text say previous score and then the score. So we also need a function for the start game button to make it so you can start the game. So let's do public void start game. And then inside here, we need to type scene manager.load scene game. So this will load the game scene. So let's go back to the game. I'm going to change the background, so click on main camera, click on background, and then change it to whatever you want. I'm going to make mine light green. And if you click on the play button, if you scroll down to the bottom, well, you don't need to scroll, it's right here. You can click the plus. You could drag in the camera to this none object. And then if you click on no function, if you go to the script, which we don't have yet, so we need to add that, click on main camera and then give it the menu script. the player, we don't need to give it here. We need to give it in the other scene because we need to give the main camera the script in the other scene too. But we need to make the previous score text, a new text. So we need to make new text. So let's just make it so it's on the bottom. And it will say previous score. Let's make this 60. And this will tell us our previous score. Let's give this an outline. So now if we go to our main camera, we could give the previous score text to it. And we can go back to our button. And now with the main camera, if we click no function, we can see that it says menu script. And we can go to the function start game. Click on it. And now, before we test it, we need to go to our game, save changes, go to our main camera, and give it the main menu script. So this time, we need to give it the player plan, but we don't need to give it the previous score text. So if we go back to our menu script, if we start the game, we can play it. So previous score 0, if we hit play, then our score goes up. Let's try to get a coin. Okay, we forgot one thing. We forgot to make it so you could lose. So let's go back in our script. Let's go to our player controller. So if you collide with the enemy, then we need to switch the scene. So we need to be using Unity Engine .scene management, just like the last script. And we need to do scene manager .load scene menu. So now when you get hit, it should load the menu scene. So if we hit play, it loads the scene successfully. And we have a score of 7 or 6. It says previous score 6. So now we have a functional game. So congratulations on finishing this tutorial to make this pretty cool looking game. There's many things you could do to it, like add some particles to come out of the plane, which if you want to stick around for another minute or two, I will show you how to do. And this is just a fun, simple game. Previous score of 81, that's pretty good. So just to make things look a little bit nicer, if we go to our plane, so right click on the grid, go to effects and click particle system, then go to shape and make this a box. So we need to change a few things. So the first thing we are going to change is the duration to 2. And we need to make the start lifetime 0.3 and the start speed 10. So this will make it pretty long. We also need to make it so the size is 0.3 on the X and Y. And we need to go to emission and change the rate over time to 100. So this will make it spawn in pretty fast and looks pretty good. We need to make its rotation not 0. We need to make it, let's see, no, negative 90 and negative 90 here, no, negative 90, no. How do we make it so that it turns? Maybe 0 here, negative 90 here. Okay, perfect. So now we have it going to the side. So we want to change its color over lifetime. So if we go to color over lifetime and check it off, then we click on it, we can change its color. So I'm going to have it start at a fiery red. Then it will go to an orange-like color. If you just click, it adds more pointers. And then I'm going to have it end off in yellow. So I think this looks pretty cool. So let's put the particle system on the plane, but as you can see, it gets stretched weirdly, and we don't want that. So let's add an empty game object, And then let's put the particle system on that game object. And it still does it. Okay, so the real reason it does that is because these aren't even. We need these to be 0.3, 0.3, and the z doesn't really matter. Well, I guess the z makes it longer or shorter. Make the z 1. And now, the player has a cool fire effect, a smoke effect coming out of it. And we want to give that to our enemies too. So just copy the particle with Command-C or Control-C, and then double-click on the enemy plane in prefabs, click on it, and then Command-V or Control-V, and set its position to 0, set its Y to 90, positive 90, and just move it to the back of the plane. And now, all of the planes will have a fire effect. Awesome, so now we have a really cool looking game where you have to avoid planes and collect coins for getting good scores. So you could really add a lot of stuff to this and make this game a lot more intuitive and have a lot more effects to make it look cooler. I am trying to keep this kind of simple, and it's already turning into a long video, so I'm not going to do any more effects myself, but I think this game turned out pretty well. So what we should probably also do, just to make it so your computer doesn't eventually start lagging, quickly go on the move left script, and in the start do destroy game object, comma, 30. So this will make it so that everything that's moving left will destroy itself after 30 seconds. I did a lot higher than it takes to get to the other side purposefully, just in case, so I don't underdo it. That would be bad. So thank you so much for watching this video. It was really fun to make, and I think it turned out as a really cool game. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next video.